And welcome to the Hoop Collective podcast. We talk about the NBA, which we're doing in Manila here on Sunday evening. Joining us on late Sunday morning from New York City, Tim Bontemps.
Hello, guys.
Join us from Dallas, Texas, even earlier on Sunday morning. My schedule is really crimping his style. Is Bam MacMahon.
Howdy, partners. Had a little brunch. We're good. Time is not bad at all. Got to watch a thrilling World Cup upset before we popped on here.
Timing is not good for France.
Yes. Yeah, so day 3 of the World Cup was Sunday, and it was a day of significant upsets. Number one, the last game of the day, Latvia, who's playing without Kristaps Porzingis, who has that foot issue, plantar fasciitis, is missing the World Cup. And he was here though, which I thought that was good that he came here, and he got to see the Latvians upset the French. The French got drilled by the Canadians in their opening game on Friday, which I thought was the most important game in the first round. It turns out that that's not going to be the case because France just wasn't that good. Nothing to take away from Latvia, but get run off the court by the Canadians and then get beat by the Latvians, and they are eliminated. In fact, this, what I had termed the group of death. France is out. Spain won't have to worry about trying to beat them out. They may have to worry about Latvia, though. So Canada, who won earlier today easily over Lebanon, advances. So Canada is through to the second round. The French are out. Evan Fournier had 27 points in the game, which they lost by 2. Nick Batum had 13 points. He's coming towards the end of his national team career. Now, it's very, very upsetting for the French who were trying to medal here. They do have a berth automatically into the Olympics because they're hosting, and they're darn lucky they do because they're not even close to getting one. Rudy Gobert played 26 minutes in this game, took one official shot. He did get to the line 8 times, so he was shooting a little bit more. But that sounds like a miserable night in Utah. One shot. Hard to believe about that. But there was a number of upsets that happened in the World Cup today. Australia was upset by Germany. And, that might end up not being an upset because
it was an upset.
Looks pretty good.
It was an upset because Franz Wagner's hurt and didn't play. Like the Australians should have took care of that game without him. The two of that with Franz playing, I think they're pretty evenly matched teams, but without their best player, the Aussies should have won that game, and they'll be pretty disappointed that they didn't.
Yeah, and so Franz Wagner hurt his ankle in Germany's opening game on Friday, which can't remember who was against. And he had imaging, and he's day to day. They're not really saying exactly what it is. But so he was out. And then also today, and again, maybe this isn't an upset, but it's surprising a little bit. The Dominican Republic beats Italy, and Karl Towns, who had a big game in the opener to beat the Philippines, that came right down to the end, has another big game. I think he had 24 points and 11 rebounds on Sunday to lead the Dominican Republic, who I'm not sure if I think they're through to the second round. By the way, that game against the Philippines that Karl Towns had on Friday night, which was in front of 38,000 fans. They thought it was going to be over 50,000, ended up being 38, still set the record for the highest attendance game in World Cup history. Karl Towns with a pretty amazing moment. Maybe not so amazing if you know Karl, but last 3 or 4 minutes to the game, he's on the line, clutch free throws. It's a 1-possession game. He makes the first free throw, and he notices that he's on the massive scoreboard at this 50,000 seat stadium in north of Manila. And he starts adjusting his hair. My hair needs to be fixed. And super clutch free throw. And then he just, okay, his hair's in a good place, and he knocks down the second free throw. So Karl Towns totally being happy being Karl Towns here in the Philippines. So, but anyway, obviously
Wendy can respect a hair a moment. You if anybody can respect some, perfectly placed little hairdo type situations.
Hey, listen, if you make the free throw, you can do whatever you want, I guess. But so we'll talk about Team USA's opening win in a few minutes. We'll talk about Giannis Antetokounmpo's interview with the New York Times. But Bontemps, I think first here, I was actually at a meeting and missed most of this game tonight with France and Latvia. But you, I know, watched most of the second half. Not a great sign for the French, especially with the NBA players who are hoping to go for another medal this summer.
Yeah, I mean, it was a pretty interesting game. I was talking to Nick Nurse a few weeks ago, who obviously was going to be coaching Canada in this World Cup until a couple of months ago. And so he was studying the Latvians quite a bit because they were in this group. And I believe the Latvians went 11-1 in qualifying to qualify for the World Cup for the first time ever as a country. And even after Porzingis was not going to play, he thought that they had a chance to really make some noise in this group, maybe be like the Czech Republic were a few years ago in the World Cup when they made kind of a surprise run. And you look at this team, they've got Davis Bertans, they have his brother, they have Rodions Kurics, who played in the NBA for a minute with the Nets. They've got some legitimate players on this team, but even still, France was in control of this game early in the fourth quarter, up 8-9 points most of the second half. Nando De Colo, the veteran guard for France, gets ejected, gets tied up with a guy, shoves him. Pretty stupid play, frankly, for a guy of his experience level. And the game completely flipped from that point forward. I think Latvia outscored France like 22-10 down the stretch, end up pulling the game out late. Rudy Gobert gets an over the back foul, causes Latvia to get free throws to go ahead inside the final 38, 40 seconds of the game. And yeah, I mean, you mentioned it before. I mean, yeah, France qualifies for the Olympics, but France goes into these tournaments expecting to win medals. And like they thought they had a chance to win a gold medal. And instead they get humiliated by Canada on Friday in what was arguably the most important game of this first round, because not only did they lose that game, it set them up to be in a win or go home game in this one against Latvia. They lose this game, and now their tournament is done in the first 72 hours. I mean, it's just pretty staggering. You don't see teams like this get eliminated in the group stage of the World Cup in FIBA hardly ever. And, there were some pretty frustrated guys on the French team after the game, understandably, because this is not how they expected this to go. Obviously, an incredible moment for Latvia, having never made the World Cup, advancing, beating France. They actually have a chance to win the group if they can beat Canada on Tuesday. I wouldn't expect them to. I think the Canadians will win that game. We'll talk about them. But
Canada put up a cool 128 in a 40-minute game against Lebanon today. Now, obviously, Lebanon's not the 92 Dream Team, but still, you put up 128 points. They shot 71% as a team.
Yeah, I mean, you look to the first two games, 3 days of the tournament, and the Canadians have been the story of the tournament. I mean, just the absolute demolition of France on Friday, followed by this. I know, like you said, it is Lebanon, but still, they've looked every bit the team they hope to be coming into the tournament. And, if you're gaming it out, they are in the much more difficult half of the bracket, but certainly if you're picking a team besides the United States to win the gold at this point, I think the easy bet is that the Canadians will be the one to do it.
Yeah, and France, not exactly the way they wanted to go into being the host country of the Olympics. Now, we'll see if they get a certain 7'4" guy to join the squad for those Olympics.
What about a 7'2" guy?
I was going to say, or even Embiid. It's the other thing is, I don't know if this is like the best recruiting pitch going into Joel Embiid's national team free agency either.
Well, I mean, I have no idea what's in Joel's head. I have no idea what his health is going to be. I do know that Joel knows a good story when he sees it. And coming to the aid of his Frenchman it's hard to say that because I think he's played 1 second with any of them, but coming to the aid of his French brethren would be interesting. I don't know what that does, but Wembanyama. What'd you say?
I think there would be. I really think if Embiid decides to go to France, I think there would be some pretty significant discomfort within the roster.
I just I don't see any scenario he plays for France. I would be stunned if he did. I'll be pretty surprised if he plays for Team USA either, but I'd be pretty stunned if he plays for France personally. That's not anything Joel has told me, to be clear. It's just my guess, but I don't. Yeah, I just don't see that.
Joel has left all of his avenues open, and I expect him to do so for quite some time. Wembanyama really was looking forward at one time to playing with this team. He elected not to. Knew he was going to play in the Olympics no matter what. I mean, he made a calculated decision, but I'll bet he's sick seeing, especially a 2-point game,
Right.
Obviously, if they had Wembanyama, they probably win this game, especially with Porzingis banged up. But Gobert getting one shot.
What they should be trying to do is find a guard. They need a guard. They need another guard on this team. I mean, DeColo is going to be another year older, and other than Fournier, they have nobody on the perimeter that's doing anything really.
Probably also need DeColo not to get tossed down the stretch, but yes.
Yes, I mean, just
Ntilikina is another guard, but he's hurt. But
he's not an offensive player. I mean, that was their biggest issue. You watch the game Friday against Canada. I mean, Canada, when they roll out there with Shea, Dylan Brooks, Lou Dort, and RJ Barrett on the perimeter, like, it's a pretty damn good group of 4 perimeter defenders in an NBA game, let alone in a FIBA game. And that was, to me, I was curious to see, all right, are these guys have they gotten old, or did they just struggle against a super elite defensive team? And I mean, they put up some points in this game, but their offense still didn't look great. And, it'll be interesting to see what happens next summer, but certainly if they can have Victor out there playing next to Gobert, that would help them quite a bit offensively, you would think.
By the way, Canada put up 128 points with the SGA playing 17 minutes. I mean, they treated that basically like a
Lebanon, not exactly a threat, but just a super cool moment for Latvia. I mean, to have to play your first World Cup, to be in maybe the hardest group, and to beat the French to advance with Porzingis watching, which, like you said, it's pretty cool he was there too. Could have easily gone home dealing with plantar fasciitis and rested it, but going on the trip, being there for it, you could see he was pretty fired up. That was pretty cool.
Absolutely. So also today, Japan upset Finland, keeping their hopes of advancing alive. Lauri Markkanen and the Fighting Finns are out after 2 games. They play a 3rd game, but they won't advance. So
tough day for the Utah Jazz, former and current. Jordan Clarkson had a rough one, and
that was another upset. Philippines should not have lost to Angola. That was pretty tough.
That's a bummer, man. Hosting the tournament and you go out and lose your first 2, and that's that.
Especially if they beat Angola with Italy losing, it would have been in a win in advance game on Tuesday against Italy, a game they very well could have won. This isn't the strongest Italian team. And, now they can still advance. It's a very convoluted scoring system. So if they win by a certain amount, they could potentially advance, but it's a lot more complicated than just you beat Italy and you advance, which is what it would have been.
Markkanen had 27 points in this game today that he lost to Japan, by the way. So on Friday night, I went to a watch party here in Manila to see the Filipinos live and die with every basket of that game. And Jordan Clarkson fouled out with about 5 minutes to go on a non-questionable offensive foul. It was a hard thing to foul out on, but he absolutely it could have not been called, but it was an offensive foul. And just to see the crowd shots that they were showing, because the Philippines had several opportunities near the end. And like I said, it was a 1 or 2 possession game for a long time. And the crowd shots were just priceless. You don't have a dog in the fight. It's just interesting to watch. And I was feeling it in this room I was in, and everybody was so bummed. They've been looking forward to this for so long. It's so fascinating to see the Filipino fan in action. And so let me give you an example of what I mean. They're not just out here cheering for Lakers players, although they do that a lot too.
Right.
We'll talk about Austin Reaves here in a minute, but like I walked past a security post the other day and the first day on Friday, and there were some soldiers at this security post, and they were watching a game on their phones, or at least one guy was watching a game, and it was Montenegro versus Mexico.
Yeah.
And obviously that's happening in the country, and there's an interest level, but like that's you got to be a pretty interested basketball fan. Like you get into these. They have like an Uber style system here. It's not Uber, but it's Uber style app here in Manila. And you get into these cars, and these people have like their teams that they root for, their players they root for displayed. Like they'll have hats on their dashboards or flags, and you'll be going through some super gorgeous neighborhoods, and you'll see people wearing beautiful memorabilia. You'll be going through some really dilapidated abject poverty areas, and you'll see people on the side of the road wearing Steph Curry jerseys and stuff like that. So it is definitely it's quite a place for this World Cup, because there's truly a celebration of basketball, and they just really, being in the arena for the U.S. New Zealand game, there's a lot of just genuine excitement about the event even happening, much less the way the game's playing out. And you two guys are popular. I keep getting asked.
Hold on.
Where are your two
amigos?
Yeah, they don't say that. Although the Filipino language is influenced by Spanish. Where are those two? Where are your other two guys? Where are your friends? Where are they? I'm like, they're not here. Why are you worried about it? Leave them alone. I'm here.
Not my friends. But I'm
here.
I
want to just.
No. I love just. Wendy's the man of the people. He's going to watch parties. He's hanging out in the neighborhoods. He's
listen,
chatting everybody up. I love man of the people, Wendy, getting ready for live shows. I love it.
Man, if we did a live show here, holy Moses. Anyway, I'd like to shout out the Senate Majority Leader.
Here we go. Shout outs on the pod. True man of the people.
And Senator Angara. I met two senators from the Filipino Senate. There's only, I think, 24 of them. So, it's not like they're just moseying around the countryside.
Well, they're just moseying up to you, clearly. That's all they're doing.
Yeah, they're big
Manny
Boston
Pacquiao
Celtics
still
fans.
in the Senate?
Celtics, that's interesting.
No, he ran for president and lost to Ferdinand Marcos Jr., I believe. He's the president right now.
Why
the
Celtics? Give you a reason on being Celtics fans? Just the team they picked when they were kids? Or?
That would have been good reporting. I should have asked that. I didn't ask that, but they apparently attended the finals last year and still are not over it. But anyway, so they wanted to know where you two guys were. They're prepared to, lead a delegation.
Well, come on, hey, extend the invitation. Bring us on down. I really would. I'd love to check out, just because you hear so much, like you're talking about, how the Philippines loves basketball. Like, I'd love to go check out one of the games in their professional league. I've seen a Puerto Rican pro game, and I think there's some similarities, although Puerto Rico is a place where, it's obviously baseball first, but there is a big, basketball passion fan base there. But the Philippines, like I said, I've always just heard how passionate they are about basketball. And honestly, that's one reason I'm disappointed that they haven't been able to win a game yet, just because I know how much this must mean to the people there and the basketball culture there.
Yeah.
While we're talking about political figures, I just want to say also a shout out to Mary Kay Carlson, who I spent some time with. She is the United States ambassador to the Philippines.
Until you replace her.
I was going to say, soon Wendy's going to be the ambassador to Abu Dhabi, and then he's going to get transferred to the Philippines after that. We're just going around the world picking up political endorsements, MacMahon.
Madam Ambassador came to the Team USA practice the other day. She is from Little Rock.
Big Arkansas tournament.
Yeah, how about there being two Arkansans on Team USA, including Bobby Portis, who's from Little Rock, and Austin Reaves, who's from Newark. I think it's how you pronounce it, Arkansas. So yeah, look, this is how I roll out here, guys. I'm not out here just writing about pick and roll coverage. Okay,
no,
I'm out here representing.
That's right.
Pick and roll, hands, no politics.
Shaking hands, kissing babies, and preparing his runs for political office. That's what he's doing.
I am out here representing the American basketball community, representing ESPN, and representing the Hoop Collective. Internationally.
Listen, two of those three entities really appreciate that.
All right. Well, speaking of Arkansans in the World Cup, I didn't go with Team USA to Spain, but I got a report from there. I did go to Team USA to the UAE and have been here in Manila. And I am prepared to say that Austin Reaves is a worldwide sensation.
I mean, is that the case, or is he just on the Lakers and is a good player on the Lakers? I would say it's more the latter. No disrespect to Austin Reaves. No disrespect to Austin Reaves at all.
Well, that's where it started. I agree. That's why he's known, but he's also playing great and winning over the fans. Tonight, I saw some video. Austin was at some sort of shoe convention, and there was thousands of people who came to see an appearance he made at a shoe convention. And there's all kinds of Austin Reaves jerseys I'm seeing all over Manila. Now, yes, of course, they're Lakers, like so many places in the world. They're Lakers crazy here. So
yeah, I mean, that's all I'm saying. He's played terrific for the past month, and he has obviously had a great start to his career with the Lakers. I just think
I want to explain
any other team, this wouldn't be happening right now. That's all.
In the second quarter, when Austin Reaves hit a three, he was leading. The U.S. got down in this game, which I'll talk about in a second. He had a 3-pointer as part of a big run, and when he turned around and did the ice in my veins move, and I'm him. By the way, that's the whole thing. When he walks past people, they all scream to him, you're him, from the moment in the playoffs where he was mic'd up.
Sure.
That's awesome.
When he gave the ice in the veins pose, it sounded like a Taylor Swift concert in that building. The screams from the people, they loved it.
Sure.
He played 22 minutes in this game, and I believe was plus 19.
Yeah.
Made a huge difference coming off the bench. The starters were absolutely flat. So here's what happened. So New Zealand, obviously, their players were saying after the game that they had been preparing their game plan for 3 weeks. Secondly, because it was and I don't want to absolve the U.S. of what happened in this game. It was mildly concerning the way this game played out, especially since the last game, their starting lineup got boat raced by Germany before Austin Reaves and Tyrese Halliburton bailed them out, which they did again in this game. So before the game, there was all this pomp and circumstance. And the Kiwis, the All Blacks, as they are known, the New Zealand team. I'm sorry, take that back. The All Blacks are the rugby team. The Tall Blacks are the basketball team.
Well,
the Tall Blacks are out there 27 minutes before the game on the clock going through their warm-up. Very unusual to see a team out there with that much on the clock. But they were ready because Team USA didn't come out till there was like 14 minutes on the clock, and they had to go through the following: a team photo, a dance routine done by some dance troupe to ceremony first game, whatever, which they turn the lights off for, player introductions, the national anthems for both teams, all time the clock is running. And they had to watch respectfully, the New Zealanders go through their war dance routine.
The haka.
I'm not going to pronounce it because I botched it last time. I'm not going to embarrass myself.
It's just called the haka. It's not that hard to say.
Okay. Well, anyway, then
Wendy's not trying to be the ambassador to New Zealand.
He clearly is not. Clearly is not.
I would love to go to New Zealand. I've been to New Zealand. It's wonderful. Anyway, then just before like this stuff's happening, a guy, an imposter, wearing what looked like official New Zealand uniforms, a uniform, got onto the floor.
Wait, what? Really? Like a playing uniform?
He had,
or was he looking
as far
like
as I can tell? No, as far as I could tell, and I didn't go feel the material with my hands, he looked like he had acquired either an official New Zealand uniform or one hell of a replica.
So this was like the guy in New Orleans that one time who did the warm-ups, who was out there just like shooting, that had like the whole warm-up gear on. It was like that.
I don't remember that, but sure.
Sounds like
it.
It turns out that this guy is a English influencer, YouTuber, prankster who's got 2 million IG followers. And I really want to know how he got the uniform. He was wearing the number 24, and apparently there was a 24 with New Zealand before their team got cut. I want to know where that uniform is. That's what I would do if I was an investigator. Anyway, the point is, this was another disturbance that happened on the court, and security did recognize it, grab him, and yank him out of there. So that all went down, and the U.S. had like 90 seconds to warm up. Now,
everybody
that is
got
not
one
an
shot.
Excuse. That is not an excuse for why they got down by 10 points. But I'm just telling you, the whole thing was a mess. By the way, they knew all that stuff was happening. It wasn't like they didn't know all that, but they just didn't come out with enough time. And then the basketball was bouncing funny. Look, I'm just going to say, I don't know what happens in FIBA, but there's almost nothing that you could tell me that I would rule out of hand.
No.
And if you tell me that they got a basketball that was slightly flat, all I know is that Anthony Edwards twice just was dribbling the ball, and the ball didn't like come back to his hand.
MacMahon, did you notice that Brian started this off by saying there was this mildly concerning game, and has now spent the past 9 minutes listing off all of the excuses?
It was mildly concerning.
He's telling us about the circus.
I'm just messing around.
My guess would be there were dead spots on the floor, but who knows?
Who knows?
Yes, I don't know.
As you said, anything is. This is truly an anything is possible situation all the way around.
The other thing is that New Zealand, it was a good game plan. They literally, when I say they bumped the U.S. on every play, when New Zealand would score, all of their players would go up to the guy that they were guarding and bump them just for the hell of it. And it was kind of effective because the Americans were out of sorts for like 5 minutes. And Steve Kerr started substituting. He had substituted 4 guys in the first 5 minutes of the game. So, and then they didn't play great to start the third quarter either. But Austin Reaves and Tyrese Halliburton were terrific in their minutes. And then Paolo Banchero made his first 6 shots and scored 21 points overall, made a couple of 3-pointers in the third quarter. Paolo has been on this journey to get used to the basketball. The basketball, if you felt it, it feels softer than a NBA ball.
And also
there's more panels.
Yeah,
there's more panels and it feels softer. And that bothers the shooters. Also, Jaren Jackson was telling me that it's bouncier, even though I didn't think it was bouncy when Ant was dribbling it. But Ant had 4 turnovers in the first half, including 2 where he just you heard the term "lost your dribble." It literally lost it because he was dribbling it and the ball didn't come up. So I don't know what kind of sorcery that was, but Paolo Banchero has been struggling with this basketball. He was 2 of 10 on free throws in the warm-up games. And so when he got off the bus in Manila on Tuesday, traveling from Abu Dhabi, he had the ball under his arm. And I think he like carried it like a carry-on the 10-hour flight, like a running back who, would like fumble the ball and they say, sleep with the ball, son. And he's been working out extra with Chip England, the shooting coach. And so like it all came together in one moment. Paolo Banchero with 21 points, and he was pretty happy. I talked to him after the game. He was very happy with the way it turned out. But and he's even was saying like I've been keeping to myself. I'm sure he feels a lot out of sorts here, even though the team is young. He's like sort of the new kid in school, and he's even said he's like I've been keeping to myself. I'm just trying to focus. I'm just trying to do good. So he had a good game, but the front line struggled. I don't know if you got to watch that, MacMahon, but that was my assessment of the game.
Yeah, I watched some of it and watched the highlights thing. And it wasn't a great start for the U.S. when the early highlights for the U.S. were free throws. The official FIBA highlights, like, ooh, it's interesting because you've mentioned several times like they have had a starting lineup and they have stuck with that starting lineup, and this is 2 straight games where that starting lineup kind of had to get bailed out. So I'm curious to see how committed Steve Kerr is to status quo when it's not like they've taken a loss or anything, but they have not exactly looked like a juggernaut in these last couple of games.
He was asked, for the record, he was asked, and he said he didn't consider a lineup change at halftime. So I don't know. He didn't seem to say anything today, but he was asked about that.
I would say to just keep it the same, because to me, this has gone exactly as you'd want it to. Not the starting part where the team is starting badly, but this second unit, especially with Reaves and Halliburton coming in together, has just been wrecking teams, flying up and down the court, playing incredibly fast in transition, getting guys like Paolo a lot of easy baskets against these second units that cannot keep up with their athleticism. And to me, I would just keep rolling with that, because I think as they go through the tournament, that's going to be a really significant advantage for these guys against whoever they play. Because no matter what team, even against a team like the Canadians, when they get it past their 6th or 7th guy, they don't have guys that can keep up with the kind of athletes that Team USA is bringing in with this second group. I mean, if you went out there with Halliburton, Reaves, Josh Hart, Cam Johnson, and Paolo, like, you can just fly up and down the court. And, obviously it's funny with Josh Hart being out there. It's a lot like how the Knicks played over the second half of the season once he got there with him and Emmanuel Quickly, just pushing the pace, flying up and down in transition. I think that's right from the beginning of training camp. They've made that a pretty big emphasis with that second group going back to Vegas. And you saw in that game, those guys came in, it was 14-4 in about 90 seconds. It felt like they were right back in the game and completely flipped it around because New Zealand just couldn't handle their speed.
Well, Austin Reaves, so I'm learning about his game as I'm watching him up close. I knew he was an excellent shooter. I knew he had a real quick release. I knew that he was really sort of beyond his years and his savviness in getting to the foul line. I knew that he embraced moments, but one of the things that I've watched him do is how poised he is and how he never hurries. That was one of the things that was happening in this particular game. And like New Zealand, they were playing very physical, and predictably they had a good game plan. They were prepared. They just didn't have the talent, and they ran out of gas. But they were applying quite a bit of pressure. That was their game plan, to apply pressure and play fast. And the one thing I've noticed about Austin is that he never hurries. He's not flustered. And he's a really good passer.
Yeah.
And, he looks for his shot, but he really is not focused on it. And he'll go through his options. And, when he sort of probes, like with the first, when the first like option isn't there, he's very calm about it. He plays older than he is.
Yeah,
He
no,
plays older than he is.
you can put the ball in his hands and you're going to get a lot of good shots. If you put the ball in his hands and he's running pick and roll or, whatever, like he'll create good shots, whether for himself or somebody else. And that honestly is the part of his game that I underestimated. And then you see him up close in the playoffs, you're like, Jesus, this guy is really, really good.
I was trying to think of a comp for him. And the guy that I think I've settled on he's not quite as big, but is Chris Middleton. Like really solid, not super flashy, doesn't do a lot of stuff that pops like highlight play wise, but very solid creator, really good shooter, solid defender. Like I said, it's not perfect because Middleton's a couple inches bigger, but he's kind of it's kind of the same thing where no matter where you plug him in or what you need him to do, he could slot in and do exactly that. That's why that contract was so great for them. Like if you're saying he's a Chris Middleton type player, that's a guy who's made several All-Star teams, max level player, and Austin Reaves just signed for a backup money for the next 4 years.
I mean, it's a pretty blatant violation of the NBA comp rules. Like you gotta be like, like I see like Utah Jazz, Gordon Hayward, or maybe like, hey, if Chandler Parsons never got hurt, like you gotta. There's a certain demographical rule that applies to Austin Reaves comps.
Well, his teammates love him. They love him. They love playing with him. The fans love him. And here's the thing. I'm going to do this for him because he won't say this publicly. Next time they do one of the matches where they have NBA players play in the golf event, Steph Curry is the best NBA golfer. That's without question.
He's pretty close though, Austin.
So last time they had Klay Thompson play with Steph, and look, I'm never saying a bad word about Klay, but it wasn't the greatest showing from Klay. So look, our brethren at Turner Sports who puts these together. They're usually on, I think, TBS or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, Austin's a legit golfer.
Let me give you a little piece of advice. Think about Austin Reaves. And again, to use our favorite line from Billions, I am not uncertain that Austin would have interest in participating alongside Steph. And that Austin and Steph often talk about golf. Oh, yeah. I'm not uncertain. So let me tell you something. You may think, well, Klay Thompson's a bigger name than Austin Reaves. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, he is not Klay Thompson, but this guy is absolutely winning over fans by the day.
The stars on the rise.
And yeah, he's on the World Cup team, and he's the third best player on the Lakers. I'd say that qualifies him to be on that tournament or that match play show.
I like how Wendy says he wouldn't say this. Dude, this is the guy who on national TV look at the camera and scream and him. Yeah. Like, let's we don't need to make the man modest.
Listen,
like
our guy
he feels pretty good about himself, and rightfully so.
He also went and played a round of golf with our guy Dan Wojcicki. I'm pretty sure he would play a round of golf with Steph Curry on TV. Pretty confident.
If he likes golf enough to hang with Wojcicki for a few hours.
Exactly.
Yes. So let me say something about Tyrese Halliburton as well. Steve Kerr had an interesting comparison when talking about Halliburton because, he is shooting the heck out of the ball and he's creating a ton of turnovers. He's got 6 steals the last 3 games. And I got to tell you something, like if I was Jaren Jackson, I might, I'm afraid that when this is over, Jaren Jackson's going to be like so many big men who play FIBA over the years and be like, this stinks for bigs because he is not getting correct, in my opinion, correct recognition for block shots. They gave him 1 block shot in this game. He's also always in foul trouble. And some of it is he tries to block too many shots and he gets in foul trouble. That's one of his things. But like, he's not getting good whistles. Then he's not getting appropriate stats, because there's no way he had one block in this game. And if he only had one block, then he altered 2 or 3 other shots with so much wind from his from his hand swinging that the ball changed direction. But anyway,
he's playing with
Tyrese
a fan.
Halliburton. Tyrese Halliburton is got 6 steals the last 3 games, and one of the things that is an asset for the USA team especially is defending without fouling, because fouls are, you're only allowed 4.
Oh, jeez, here we go.
Here we go again.
And
foul out on your 5th, just to be clear.
and that's an issue to put the other team on the line. You want to be able to defend. So anyway, Halliburton's been great, but Steve Kerr had an interesting comp for the way he plays. He's watched him now on his team for a month, and he said he's like a quarterback who goes through his progressions and makes the correct decision on like whether to check down or go for the home run or throw it over the middle, whatever. And then like has a good instinct for, in a quarterback parlance, when to take off with the ball, or in Halliburton's situation, when to shoot it. And what has, he has an odd shot. It's almost
looks kind of like a slingshot.
Calling it a set shot is not accurate, but it looks like it's from a different era.
It's part of why he dropped in the draft. I think he's a funky player. He's skinny. He's got a funky looking shot. It doesn't look like it should for an elite player, which he quite obviously is an elite player.
Questions about his size as well, but yes.
So anyway, the U.S. plays Greece in their second game on what it will be Monday morning in the U.S. at 8:40 a.m. on ESPN2. We'll see if their front line plays a little bit better. We've already talked about Brandon Ingram not playing well. He didn't play well again. 1 of 4. His minutes got cut. He only played 16 minutes. So we'll see if he plays better.
By the way, you mentioned it earlier. Just real quick about the Dominican. I would guess as of now, they're pretty likely to be the U.S.'s opponent in the quarterfinals, which would be a pretty massive accomplishment if they're able to pull that off. The U.S. side of the bracket is very weak. In the other group, Serbia should win the other group, the other half of the other half of the U.S. bracket, and the Dominicans really should finish second. And if they do, that they would get the U.S. in the quarterfinals, which that'd be pretty huge for them, for Karl Towns, if they could do that.
That would be terrific, for sure. So,
but back to Tyrese Halliburton. A request for more Tyrese Halliburton.
There you go. They just provided. I got a story waiting to run on
me from an Indiana fella this week, seconding. Seconding the request from Tyrese's dad.
Well, I'll say this about Tyrese is that one of the things his dad's name is John. He was like a very, very proud resident of Oshkosh, Wisconsin. And, Tyrese, when he was a kid, he was from Oshkosh. He wasn't from Milwaukee. He wasn't from Chicago. He didn't get as much attention as a standout high school player. Not as much attention, for example, as Tyler Hero, who is from Milwaukee and went to Kentucky. Mm-hmm. And, Tyrese went to Iowa State. It was really his only high major offer at the time. More teams came in later after he committed. Fell in the draft despite having a great college career. Traded from Sacramento. Even on this team, I have no problem with Jalen Brunson starting, and Jalen he's not playing great, but he's not playing poorly.
Yeah, it fits regardless of the fairness, it fits the theme. To your point, it fits the theme.
And one of the things that his dad has told him throughout the years, with all these challenges and probably 1,000 more, is that do play your game and be yourself, and they'll find you. The scouts will find you. The media will find you. The teammates will find you. The teams will find you. It'll work out for you. And
Worked out pretty well.
I was talking to him about this the other day. I was talking about this the other day. He's on Team USA playing great. He just signed a $200 million contract. They found him, and Steve Kerr has found him in his lineup recently. So
and I'm really excited to watch Indiana play this year. Like with all the athletes they've got on that team now, trading for Obi Toppin, they draft Jarris Walker. They've got Ben Mathurin, who was a really intriguing rookie last year. Miles Turner's a big time center. Like they got a lot of athletes and a lot of Buddy Hield, terrific shooter. Like they're going to be able to fly up and down the court. Like it's sort of built for him to really make them into a super fun team this year. And I'm excited to see what that looks like. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Good thing you have League Pass. Ain't on national TV.
I do have League Pass, and I'll be using it.
Before we move on to Giannis, we need to have a discussion, my so-called friends.
Oh, so-called
about Rondae Hollis-Jefferson.
Oh.
Now you may say, why are you bringing up Rondae Hollis-Jefferson, who has not played in the NBA in 2 years, and when he did play, he played 11 games right after the pandemic.
Former Nets first-round pick, Rondae Hollis-Jefferson.
Yes. Rondae Hollis-Jefferson, as we mentioned on the last podcast, is playing for Jordan. But I was watching Jordan play against Greece. Guys, something remarkable is happening with Rondae Hollis-Jefferson. He has made a decision, and I'm going to try to talk to him about this if I can. I don't think I've ever spoken to him before, and if I have, it was very brief.
Rondae is a all-time interview. Terrific guy.
Well, I got some questions because Rondae Hollis-Jefferson has made a life decision to morph himself into a duplicate of Kobe Bryant. And I'm not just saying this in passing. Rondae Hollis-Jefferson looks vastly different than he looked when we last saw him in the NBA 2.5 years ago. Mm-hmm. He now has devoted everything in his life to look and play like Kobe. And you may think that I'm crazy. Well, I invite you to go to social media and look. Yeah. Because he has lost weight. He has cut his hair into a very close facsimile to the way Kobe cut his hair. They do resemble each other. He is now wearing that sleeve on his left arm, or that wristband, like that big wristband on his left arm. And he's walking like Kobe.
He's wearing it on his right arm, but it's just his off arm.
Okay. That's right. You're correct. Yeah. I was going to say, the only thing when you see him make these moves, whether he's moving, whether he's like posing, he looks like Kobe.
Yeah, he's doing the thing like when he releases his jump shot and he leans in, until it goes in, like all the mannerisms.
Except he's left-handed, so that it looks a little bit off. But I'm telling you, like during the pandemic, those various guys, went viral on social media because they were great at mimicking what players looked like, or like their shot or their movements. This is what he's done, and he looks like him. Now, the other thing is, like, as I remember, and Bontemps, you covered him day to day. As I remember, Rondae Hollis-Jefferson was like a 3-and-D, like a work hard on defense type player.
Yeah, he was a guy. He was not a 3-and-D. He was a D who was they were hoping would develop a jumper, and when he didn't, sort of had to become a 4 or even a 5, and was a really interesting athlete. Played at Arizona, got actually traded. Mason Plumlee got traded to Portland for the pick that became Rondae Hollis-Jefferson by the Nets, and like that was sort of the hope, was he'd become a really good perimeter defender who could hit threes. The three never really came around. And so that was sort of the way his career trajectory went, to the point where he did bulk up a little bit as his career went along to try to handle playing inside more. And like you said, you look at him now. He's from Chester, Pennsylvania. He's always worn 24, but you look at his body now, his haircut, everything. He's wearing the one armband like Kobe. Like it is pretty funny how it looks. And I look forward to hearing what Rondae has to say about it because he's a great talker. I'm sure he'll be happy to talk about it when you see him.
I'm hoping to catch up with him. He scored 20. Now he's, the days of 4 and 5.
Yeah, he had a good game the other day for Jordan.
He had 24 points on 11 shots. That's not Kobe like. 24 and 11. If Kobe went 7 of 11, he would have gotten up about 12 more.
I was going to speak to him about that. He's going 7 of 11. He's going 21 of 33.
Yeah, he would have been 7 of 11 in the first quarter and been like, "Oh yeah, this is good. We're going to keep going."
So anyway, I just, if you're bored, look it up. You think I'm nuts.
No, the FIBA, the official FIBA Twitter, or whatever we're calling that thing, they tweeted out some highlights and mentioned Kobe.
It was unmistakable. It was unmistakable. There's no way you could have seen it. And of course, the Filipino fans love it. He did play in the Philippines this last season. He also played in Puerto Rico, so he's a little bit higher profile. For all I know, he's been doing this for a while, and it just came to my attention when I saw him. But everybody, this is not like a hot take. Everybody who saw him was like, "Look at this guy." So anyway, okay. Giannis Antetokounmpo gave an interview to the New York Times that was published a couple of days ago, I believe.
Do you want to do trivia first
Friday
before we start this?
Oh,
Louise, man,
you had trivia, good sir. I thought we only did trivia.
That's okay. I was just checking.
Mr. Bontemps.
And now to present today's trivia question, the whiz of the quiz, Tim Bontemps.
This is from our guy, the machine, Kevin Pelton, who called me after the pod the other day with a trivia question that I thought was pretty good.
Well, I have no chance if it's from him.
Well, it is a tricky one for sure. But since the merger, there are 6 guys who have made All-NBA first team who are not in the Hall of Fame. I shouldn't say from the merger, from 2005 and before. So those 40 years.
Guys who are Hall of Fame
eligible. Hall of Fame eligible. So not guys in the league now. So like obviously like LeBron isn't in, for example.
All right.
He's going to be.
Sean Kemp
did not make first team All-NBA.
Okay. I was thinking I was shooting for a Seattle.
Did Mark Price make first team All-NBA?
Mark Price is one of them. That is great.
Well, that's up my alley.
I know. That
that's
one
my
I thought
childhood.
You would get. So there's 6 guys.
Childhood.
There's 6 guys. One of them is Truck Robinson, who made it in 1978 for the Jazz. We're never going to get Truck Robinson. So
I've never heard of him. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yes, that's Truck. Exactly why. So that one's set aside. The other 5 are gettable. Mark Price, I thought you would get, Brian. That's one of them.
Okay, so we got Mark Price, Truck Robinson, first team All-NBA, not in the Hall of Fame.
4 more guys.
Oof. I'll be honest with you, that is a tough. You're gonna have to give hints.
Pelton, what are you doing with this off season, buddy?
Yeah, boy, it's still morning time for me, bro. And I had a little. Gotta give.
He went to pickle and you know what he did, Bontemps? He went to pickle and chicken. Do you know what that is?
I don't know what pickle and chicken is. No, enlighten me.
The other way around, chicken and pickle. It's
chicken and pickle. Okay,
sorry.
The Denver Nuggets coach,
that might be something different altogether. You might be able to get that somewhere.
The Denver Nuggets coach is actually went when they're in Dallas. It's this huge place where they've got a bunch of pickleball courts and food, and it's like basically a sports bar / pickleball complex. And
listen, Bontemps, he used to go out in Bricktown. Now he goes to play pickleball. There's your Tim MacMahon update.
Listen, it's things change.
Yeah, the IT department threw me an early birthday party. The theme was "You're a big deal."
Okay, this podcast is over.
This is I'm just telling you facts here.
Oh man.
God. The other 4, you got to provide some hints here. I'm not at my trivia.
There were 2 more guys. 2 of the 4 guys remaining also played or also made it in the 90s. We'll start with that.
Oh, made it in
he said Sean Kemp, and that wasn't one of them?
Sean Kemp was not one of them.
I really felt good about the Sean Kemp one.
That's a good guess. I don't think he never made first team, obviously. Otherwise, that's the right kind of guess, though.
Is Ralph Sampson's got? He's not 90s, but I bet Ralph Sampson. No, Ralph Sampson. He actually.
Well, he's also in the Hall.
Okay, yeah.
But I don't know if he made first team.
That's where the Hall of Fame's weird because it's not just an NBA Hall of Fame.
It's not just NBA. Right.
Oh, the 90s, damn. I'm struggling, man.
One's the one guy career got sidelined by injuries, or he would have been a Hall of Fame player in the 90s.
I don't know, man.
Guard.
Dan Marley.
Hardaway.
Penny Hardaway.
Yeah.
That's one. Another one is a current color analyst for a team and has been up for the Hall of Fame multiple times in recent years. I think is a good bet.
Chris Webber.
Nope, Chris Webber's in the Hall of Fame.
Oh, sorry, Chris.
I guessed Chris Webber when I got asked this and got it wrong.
Color analyst for a team. I don't know, man. You're gonna have to help. I'm waiting.
Just go ahead.
We don't even have a guess on it.
No, just do it. The listeners are getting tired.
All right, Marcus Johnson.
Oh, okay. All right. He wasn't in the 90s. All right. Who are the other ones?
No, he wasn't in the 90s. That you got the ones. Oh, and the other one that was in the 90s that you didn't say was Latrell Sprewell. So there you go.
Well, choked the future color analyst.
That's true.
Was that all of them?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
I feel like there was. I feel like when I listen back to this, it's not all going to marry up. That's all I'm going to say.
Oh wait, I'm sorry. There was one other one also from. No, I knew I forgot to name one. You weren't going to probably get this one either. Who was Gus Williams, who played for Kevin's Seattle Supersonics. That was the other name.
Dude,
so the five guys were Gus Williams, Mark Price, Latrell Sprewell, Penny Hardaway, and Marcus Johnson. Those are the five names of the trivia question.
Like ridiculous high IQ, like graduate level trivia questions. Come on.
I thought you guys would get the 90 ones. So
it took a while.
The other ones were tougher.
All right.
There you go.
Well, anyway, Giannis gave an interview to the New York Times, came out a couple days ago. And I think it was a photo shoot. I'm not exactly sure what he was promoting, but it was a photo shoot that the New York Times did. And somebody told me, I think it's right, but was that the photo shoot was done at Jimmy Goldstein's house in the Hollywood Hills, which is Jimmy Goldstein, the famous NBA fan, snakeskin, cowboy hats. His house, like, it's all made out of concrete and was used in The Big Lebowski. I wonder how many of our listeners have watched The Big Lebowski. Anyway, little crossover of NBA things going on there. So he basically said he's not going to sign an extension this September. He becomes eligible in September. He's not going to sign it.
I think we can move basically. He will not be signing an extension.
And that in and of itself is not surprising. I don't, even though we were going to talk about it, him not extending with 2 years left on his contract, with the age of the team and some uncertainty there with a new coach and Drew Holiday.
Financially, it also didn't make any sense. We never expected him to extend.
Correct. So by waiting another year, he can add another year. You can sign for more years later on. But that wasn't really what the news of what he said here was. This was, to me, one of the most important things that's happened in the NBA all summer. This quote, even more than the James Harden and Dame Lillard scenarios.
No question.
Quote, I would not be the best version of myself if I didn't know that everybody's on the same page. Everybody's going for a championship. Everybody's going to sacrifice time away from their family like I do. And if I don't feel that, I'm not signing.
Yeah, that was after he said next summer it would make sense for both parties. And he's talking about in terms of the numbers. Even then, yes. I don't know.
Right. Okay, Bontemps, there's some stuff to unpack there. You can go first.
Yeah. So this is an interesting move, obviously, on a variety of levels by Giannis. The simple fact of just saying it, right? As you said, it's the most important thing that's happened this summer because guys of his caliber potentially being on the market don't happen very often. Dame Lillard's a future Hall of Fame player, obviously. James Harden's obviously a future Hall of Fame player. Neither of those guys are on Giannis's level, one of the 2 or 3 best players in the league. Mm-hmm. I don't think this does a lot of good for the Bucks, really, on any level. Obviously, if he hadn't signed the extension, there would have been questions this season about what his future would look like. There were a lot of ways that could have been handled. Could have easily just come to training camp and said, look, guys, I'm not going to sign the extension. I love being in Milwaukee. We'll deal with that next summer. And it would have been a storyline, but it wouldn't have been like this, where now...
he could have left it as, hey, financially, it didn't make sense to do it now. That's the next summer.
Or even just, we'll just wait and deal with it then. Even if he just said that. But by doing this the way he has and sort of putting everybody on blast to at least a certain extent, if not completely, with a first-year head coach in Adrian Griffin, with a roster where Jrue Holiday can be a free agent next summer, can extend after the trade deadline, but not before then. There's going to be an intense amount of pressure now on the Bucks, even more than there already was. And this is going to be a story that's going to be hovering now for the next 11 months until we get to next July and we see what Giannis decides to do. And if we get to July 1st and he says, I'm not going to extend, then you're really in a very significant pivot point there for what the Bucks decide to do. And now that is going to be one of the dominant storylines of this whole season. Can the Bucks win the title? And whether they do or not, is that going to be enough to convince him to stay there? And then what are the ramifications if he decides not to? Like, there's just no getting around that now. That's going to be a dominant story and put a ton of pressure on this team. And frankly, it didn't have to go like this. This was an active choice by Giannis to do that. And there's going to be repercussions from it.
Yeah, and he's been pretty consistent as far as leaving the door cracked to at some point leave Milwaukee. I mean, this is the, I don't know, 3rd or 4th time that he's done some interview where, he's kind of acknowledged like, hey, I don't know if I'm going to be in Milwaukee forever. And in this one, talking to Tommy Ganguly of the New York Times, he, basically said that he would love to spend his whole career with one organization like Dirk, like Kobe, blah, blah, blah. But he says, at the end of the day, being a winner, it's over that goal. Winning a championship comes first. I don't want to be 20 years on the same team and don't win another championship. And look, man, even if they keep Jrue Holiday, like the guys, the core of that team that he won with, they're all getting older. They're all getting to the point where I think it's going to be tough to look at this thing and say, hey, 2, 3, 4 years down the road, the Bucks are set up to be a favorite in the Eastern Conference. And yes, this absolutely is going to be a huge story. This might even, like, we've talked a lot about Embiid. We've talked about, the possibility with Luka. Luka has never said anything to suggest that he's thinking that. That's just the fear of understanding the business and, the pressure. The
appropriate fear.
Correct. Right. And the Mavericks, the urgency they have to try to get it right because they understand, like everybody else, the way the NBA operates. We've now had Joel Embiid publicly say, hey, it might not be in Philadelphia. We've had Giannis for, again, I don't know how many times this is now, the 3rd or 4th time. This is definitely the strongest. He's the one who's putting this out there. And I think that both of those situations, like the Mavericks have urgency, but I think there's a better chance that they've got a little bit more time just because the timelines of the careers and et cetera, et cetera. Whereas as Giannis and Embiid are applying some pretty significant pressure coming from their own mouths.
Well, and the other thing about this with Giannis too, with this timing, right? It's an interesting thing to say, I want to see if everybody's all in. Because if you look at how this summer went, the Bucks spent a ton of money to re-sign Brook Lopez, to re-sign Chris Middleton, and I think fairly significantly fired Mike Budenholzer and hired Adrian Griffin. And I think it's safe to say that all of those decisions, all four of them, the firing and the hiring and the two signings, were all made with the hope and the expectation of Giannis being satisfied with them. Yeah. So it's hard for me to sit here and look at this summer and say the Bucks did not go all in to do the things Giannis wants them to do, which I would say shows at least some sign of he's got some lingering frustrations about some stuff, because it's hard otherwise to look at this and say, oh yeah, they went out and did the things this summer that I would have hoped they could do, which again, it's just all very interesting, the way this was packaged, the way it was said, and the ramifications of what it means for the next 12 months until he has a pretty significant decision to make.
Yeah, and I think it's easier to basically say, hey, everybody's got to be all in, than it is to say, look at these dudes in the locker room with me. Look at the dudes in the core. Like, hey, Brook Lopez is 35. Drew Holiday is 33. Chris Middleton's 32. Like, how's this thing going to be a contender a couple of years from now? I don't see it. you can't say that and then go,
for sure,
be part of the team with those guys. So, the fact that he went this route, maybe that's, I don't know why he would choose to say that, but I think the reality would be even more problematic to say out loud.
Well, could be.
So I think if you're the Bucks, none of these challenges that we talked about are new. But I think they would have preferred for a little bit more of a honeymoon following the signings, for sure.
Yeah.
The Bucks have been significant contenders to win the title for 5 seasons, going back to 18-19 when they lost in the conference finals. They won 60 games that year. They have pretty much, been a serious contender ever since. Last year, they had the number 1 overall seed and lost in the first round. It is extraordinarily difficult to compete to win for a championship, which they did already win one for 6 straight years, because they're going to compete this year. And so that's the two things I would take away from the Giannis situation. One, they have a great chance to win the championship this year, just like they did last year. And while there is a focus on where he's going to go, because that's a natural order in the NBA, should not take away from the fact that, I'm sure it won't for Giannis personally, should not take away from the fact of their potency as a contender now. They obviously can always get better. They may tweak the roster. We'll see how Chris Middleton comes back from a down season plagued by injuries, etc. But let's not lose that. And the second thing is that even if they had won the title last year and they were planning a ring night this fall, they would still be facing the challenge of what you just described, MacMahon, as flipping the team over, because the core players are all older than Giannis, significantly older than Giannis. And even if they had been perfect, and even if Mike Budenholzer had won Coach of the Year 4 years in a row, that challenge is going to be there.
Right.
It doesn't mean that it's like, oh my gosh, it's a failure.
No,
it's just the nature of it.
Now, you can argue they haven't maximized it. You can absolutely argue that, especially them getting bounced the first round like they did. But they've had a great run. And listen, Giannis since he's become, MVP, Giannis Antetokounmpo, his commitment to Milwaukee has always been pretty conditional. I mean, before he signed the last extension, you had the Heat, the Mavericks, teams all around the league lining up, scheming, trying to figure out ways they could either trade for him, or if he did make it a free agency, they were prepared to pounce. The Lakers, it was, that thing was shaping up right until the Bucks managed to acquire Jrue Holiday, who was in his prime, perfect fitting co-star. And that's when Giannis was like, cool. we can win a championship now. We can contend for the foreseeable future. I'll sign that extension. Boom. So what I'm saying is it took them acquiring an all-star caliber player in his prime to get Giannis to the point where he put his name on the dotted line of an extension the last time. That's awfully difficult to do. It's awfully difficult to do, for a second time. And let's be honest, especially in a market like Milwaukee, where you're probably not going to have guys asking to be traded there.
Totally. Well, and over the 5 years that we're talking about, since 18-19, Bucks have 23 more wins than any other team, have won almost 70% of their games, have been, as you said, both of you said, right there to win the title every year. Kind of amazingly, they sort of skated this year, losing in the first round.
Yeah.
The way they lost in the first round, blowing back-to-back 20-point leads in 5 games, losing game 5 at home, one of the most stunning games I think I'll ever be at, that game 5 at home in Milwaukee, when they lost to the Heat, blew the fourth quarter lead with Jimmy Butler and Bam on the bench to start the quarter, didn't score for 4.5 minutes.
And Hero breaking his hand in the first half of the first game.
Yeah.
Right. Like you look at how this all played out. Like normally that team gets absolutely excoriated for months. They sort of have escaped that. And now you're going to come into this season after that happened with a new coach, first time head coach, all this pressure on the team, and the looming specter of what's going to happen next summer hanging over the whole thing. Like,
yeah,
a
lot of pressure on a first year head coach. That's for sure.
It's just really, this really could have gone a lot of different ways. And frankly, if you're the Bucks or you're a Bucks fan, this is the least optimal way this has gone, really, other than Giannis just announcing he was never going to stay, which I don't think he was ever going to do that anyway. But the least optimal realistic path forward. And to me, this puts a ton of pressure. I mean, as much as it's pressure on AJ Griffin on the Bucks, it's a ton of pressure on Giannis. Like, if you're going to come out and say this stuff and you're going to do this now, like, you better back it up on the court. Because if they go out in the early part of the playoffs again after that, like, I mean, obviously it's going to have ramifications. It's not like teams aren't going to want to trade for him.
But there'll still be a long line.
Yeah, no, it doesn't mean he's like less valuable as a player, but this is, to me, is a put up or shut up thing in some respects. Like, you're going to come out and say this kind of stuff. Well, you better come out and play, like he did in the playoffs 2 years ago against the Celtics. If he does that in the playoffs and they lose, nobody's going to be able to say much. But, it's going to be fascinating here in Milwaukee. No question about that.
Mm-hmm.
You know what Giannis would say to MacMahon if he was questioning him about this right now?
What's that?
Just deal with it.
Wendy. Good job, Wendy.
You know how Giannis loves dad jokes. You know how he loves dad jokes.
Dad joke pro. That's one.
Yeah, there it is.
You got to respect about him. Hey, I don't. It ain't my problem to deal with. All right. It's
all right.
It's the Bucks who
thank you for listening. All right. Thank you for listening to the Hoop Collective podcast. we got more stuff to talk about in the coming days. Team USA. By the way, you can watch Team USA play against Rondae Hollis-Jefferson at 4 a.m. on Wednesday. Check that out on ESPN too. Thank you for listening to the Hoop Collective podcast. Thank you to Bontemps. Thank you to MacMahon. Thank you to Jackson. It's now Monday morning in Manila. We will talk to you in a couple of days.
Adios, amigos.